Hi, my name's Chantal Murphy and welcome to the Baby Sleep Magic podcast. Today's episode I'm going to be talking a little bit about newborns. All things newborn, what to expect, what to do, how to do things, any queries you kind of might already be thinking, I'll try and answer. But just a bit of an overview of what to expect in the first, 8 to 12 weeks. So look, my first tip is don't be too concerned about feeding your baby to sleep or holding your baby to sleep or holding your baby and offering endless amounts of cuddles. Your baby is a newborn and will only last as a newborn for a short amount of time, and enjoy it. You don't want to feel guilty for holding or feeding your newborn baby to either sleep or just for those cuddles that you want. You are not going to set up bad sleeping habits in the first 8 to 12 weeks. You will not. Everything is fixable. And that's the thing. So when they're beyond 12 weeks, 3-4 months, then you can start to implement some settling techniques and some self-soothing. But in the first 8 to 12 weeks, every day is going to be different. And you just got to kind of get through the best way you can. If you've got a baby that sleeps amazingly and sleeps all night and has great naps through the day, then amazing, great. It probably won't last for day after day, night after night. But if you can get that and it works, then great. But if you can't and you're finding yourself more often than not holding your little one, feeding your little one to sleep, putting them in a baby beyond or wearing them through the day more than what you thought you would do or more often than what you would like, don't feel guilty. Don't feel bad. You're not implementing bad sleeping habits at this age. You're just surviving. You're just getting through. Look, in the first 6 weeks, your baby's only capable of staying awake for 45 to 60 minutes at the most. And in that time, that includes feeding, burping, nappy change. And if you've even got a little bit of time left over, you could even incorporate a little bit of tummy time. But they really, in the first 6 weeks, they really need to go back to bed for their nap within that 60-minute mark. Otherwise, they're like light switches. Newborns will just flick like a switch. They will become overtired in a second. And then when that happens, it's very difficult to get your little one to sleep and to sleep easy. That's when you then either resorting back to feeding or you're bouncing on a exercise ball or you're jiggling or you're doing whatever you can do at this point to get them to sleep. So 60-minute window is ideal for newborns in the first 6 weeks. And then, 6 to 12 weeks, they've really got between 60 to 90 minutes of awake time. With the same process, they've got to be fed, burp, nappy change and a bit of tummy time in that time. And you want them to be in bed, asleep before that time. So whether it's 60 minutes or 90 minutes, they ideally need to be asleep before that time hits. So that's a bit of a snapshot on wake windows. My next big tip that I can recommend that you implement from the get-go is a bedtime routine. I wouldn't be too concerned about any other routine at the moment, but a bedtime routine will help. It cues your little one to know what comes next, especially towards the end of the day. Newborns' bedtime can be anywhere from 7 p.m. through to 11 p.m. There's no right and wrong here. It just happens to be what it will be and what works best for you and your baby and what is going to keep you guys all happy, to be honest. So look, a bedtime routine might look at something along the lines of a warm bath, a massage, a full feed, and generally nothing longer than 30 to 45 minutes. And like I said, it can be anywhere between 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. It just depends on how well your little one goes with napping through the day and napping towards the end of the afternoon. What I do suggest during the day is the easy routine. So EASY, eat, activity, sleep, your time. That's really all you need to worry about with a newborn through the day. If your little one can preferably feed, whether it's 2 to 3 hours through the day and 4 hours overnight. That's kinda the benchmark that you want to aim for. In the first 4 to 6 weeks, more often than not, they might just demand feed because your supplies, you're kind of figuring out where your supply is. Your body's figuring out what to do. And that's completely fine to demand feed in the first few weeks. But once your supplies have been established and your little one's feeding well and latching well, look, if you can, I do advise my clients to try and stick to a bit more of a schedule through the day. So 2 to 3 hours, obviously going off your baby's cues. And if you can, stretching those feeds out to 4 hours at night, again, if you can. So that would be my tip for when it comes to feeding, and then, some type of routine. When it comes to priming the environment, look, for babies under 6 weeks of age, you probably want to nap them in a light environment so you don't, to avoid day-night confusion. So, babies under 6 to 8 weeks of age, in some cases can develop day-night confusion where they're up all night partying and all they want to do is sleep through the day. So what we need to do to flick that, or to avoid that, is nap them in a light environment. So in their lounge room area, in the dining, in their bassinet, out in the living space, have it bright. So at nighttime, when it is nighttime, it's dark and it's business. It's bedtime, it's feeding, it's quickly change, and it's straight back to bed in the dark. If your baby does suffer from a little bit day-night confusion, what you do want to do is avoid them sleeping too long through the day. So I wouldn't let them sleep any longer than 2 hours. And I would also, when they are awake, make sure they're getting a little bit of exposure to daylight. So I'm not talking about taking them out and burning them in the sun. I'm just saying take them out and getting them some exposure to the light, because that will help when it comes to day-night confusion. My biggest tip when it comes to room environment is white noise. White noise is absolutely key for newborns, because when they're in the womb, they're used to 90 decibels. If you take them in a quiet room and expect them to sleep for lengthy periods of time, chances are, without white noise, they probably won't do that very successfully. White noise is key. So if you can choose, I've done a whole spiel on white noise on a podcast, and then again in my Instagram stories, it goes through exactly what one I like, why, how loud to have it, and all that kind of stuff. So head over to my Instagram page and have a look at the highlight on white noise, because I do go through a lot more detail. And also ensure that your little one is tucked in. So most newborns are swaddled, or even in one of those little love to dreams. They still need to be tucked in though, because babies, again, they come from the womb, so they can feel their surroundings. They're very snug in the womb. When they come out, although they're still swaddled or in their love to dream, they still need to be tucked in. So whether you're in a cot or a bassinet, you ideally get either a swaddle or a top sheet and tuck them in, so they still feel very firm. They, even though the swaddle is doing the job, but you still want to ensure that they're tucked in on top of that. So it will just help with the startle reflex, but it will also make them feel quite snug and secure. It's not going to prevent their hips from moving. I'm not talking about strapping them in so tight they can't move. It just creates that snugness feel that they get in the womb. When they're beyond 6 to 8 weeks, and as long as there is no day-night confusion, then I would start recommending you nap your little one in a dark room, because that will hopefully help with extending naps and helping or preventing early rising. Dark room is definitely essential when it comes to naps. Some babies are okay without having a really dark room. You generally get more success though with a dark room. And that doesn't mean you have to nap your baby in a dark room forever. But what it means, you'll get the most success. So that means hopefully your naps will become a little bit better, soothing them to sleep will become a little bit more successful, and then not getting them up so early in the morning because the sunlight or the daylight hasn't come in. You may be able to get them through till 6 or 7 in the morning with a bit of luck if the room's darker. So my next tip is for any mums out there that are breastfeeding or wanting to express. It's very expected and common that by the end of the afternoon or evening that your supply is at its lowest. You by now or by then are tired, exhausted, possibly a little stressed, your hormones are still going crazy. Your supply generally isn't amazing from 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, but unfortunately that's when your baby wants the most. Now, like I said earlier, from 6-ish weeks of age, they know the difference between night and day. They know from 3, 4, 5 in the afternoon, they're going to start stocking up. And that's where you probably heard of the cluster feeding. They will want to be on the breast a lot in the afternoon because they are starting to prepare themselves for nighttime and stocking up. And unfortunately, if your supply is less or lower, they are going to get cranky and frustrated because they want what they want and they're not getting what they want. And they will continue to stay on you and feed on you and suck on you to try and get what they want. this is where you could, if you wanted to, you could introduce a bottle at this point. If you do want to introduce a bottle, I would try and suggest introducing it after the 6-8 week mark to avoid nipple confusion. But if you are experiencing any of this and you are considering introducing a bottle, it may help with that afternoon fussiness. It may help with that witching hour. It may also help them sleep a little bit better at the beginning of the night. Yeah, it's just food for thought. It's nothing you have to do. If you are considering expressing to boost your supply, which is very common, my suggestion for expressing would be once your baby's in bed for the night, whatever time that is, once you've had a meal, once you've had a shower, that would be my suggestion. And advice would be at that point to express then. So in some cases it might be 9 or 10 p.m. at night, but ideally by then you've created enough to express. This is the thing, we're not expressing a full meal, you're just expressing leftovers. And what that is, it prepares your body for when your baby experiences a growth spurt and then requires more milk. So it just helps with your supply as well. So that would be my tip for expressing. What a lot of people find with newborns as well is they hate the car or the pram. You've either got a baby that loves it or you've either got a baby that absolutely hates it. My tip for this would be, in the instance that you're in the car, make sure your baby is fed between 15 to 20 minutes before you go in the car. Even if your baby was fed an hour before and you 100% know he or she's not hungry, it's still beneficial to offer a little feed, whether it's bottle, it might be 20 or 30 mils, or if it's, you know, a few minutes on one side of the boob, just to offer that little bit of satisfaction before they go in the car. Then when they go in the car, whether they take a dummy or not at this point, that's when you would like to use it. But then when they're in the car and they're all strapped in, now you want to get like a Muslim wrap or a blanket of some sort and tuck them in. So they're obviously strapped in. This is not, we can't put them in swaddled at all. That's certainly not what I'm suggesting. You need to ensure that they're strapped in first, and then they need to be tucked in from there. And then what I would suggest, either through the Bluetooth speaker in the car, or even if you've got a portable device, or you may even want to use your mobile phone, white noise. Put that white noise on and turn it up loud. If you have a comforter or a snuggie thing or a little lovey that you've got, or even if you don't have any of those things, but mum, you've got a singlet that you wear a lot or a pajama top that you wear, you may want to just stuff it down the side of the car seat so they can smell you. And if it is a comforter or a lovey thing, you may want to put that down your top for a day or so, put some breast milk on it, so when you do go in the car, you can kind of put it next to them and they can smell you. You know, newborn babies' sense of smell is very, very strong. Us adults have had 20, 30, 40 years of, you know, exposure to the pollution in the world. Babies don't have that. So any bit of something that you can put near them, I'm not suggesting put it near their face or even they can't hold it. That's not what I'm saying. Just put it near them. They should be able to smell you, and that will bring them comfort as well. So that's my big tips for the car, and the pram would work in very similar situation. Reflux and colic is very common for newborn babies. My tip for reflux and colic would be to ensure you try and wind and burp your baby quite often. Keep your baby upright for at least 15-20 minutes after a feed. You may even have to elevate their mattress when they are sleeping because they not necessarily like being flat on their back. You may even like to put them in the side position whilst they're going to sleep, and then when they're completely asleep, roll them on their back. But I do have more information on reflux and colic on my Instagram social media, and I do have a link there as well that can help, because there are products out there that can help with this. It's called Wilby's. I don't get any cut or anything out of this, but I just know it works. So it's an Australian made brand. It's very natural. It's all 100% organic, I think, off the top of my head. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's very natural. It has amazing reviews, and I know it works. So if you want any more information on that, you can certainly DM me. You could Google Wilby's colic mix, or you could even go to my Instagram page and have a look at that as well. But that's kind of my spiel for newborns. Look, if you do find this information useful, please feel free to share it with another mum or a friend or someone who's even expecting a baby coming up soon. And also, if you can be kind enough to leave a review, that would be really helpful, because when we get reviews, it just helps boost our recognition, and it just takes it to the next level, and that way we get more exposure, and that way we can also help more mums. So that's the whole idea to this. So thanks again for listening, and I will see you in the next podcast.